This video will tackle the housing problems in Hong Kong and thereby contrast the difference between rich, poor, and young in difficulty to get housing. From the comparison, we'll analyze the cases and consequently suggest a concrete solution to ensure our target, especially young and poor, to climb out of the poverty. The fundamental problem of housing in Hong Kong is that the lending an apartment or buying a house is too expensive. This subsequently leads to the result that only rich people get to own a house, while middle class and the group of lower income could barely rent a house. However, renting a normal house in Hong Kong is expensive as well, which means that the income gap between poor and rich would be even larger. With more amount of money they own, rich people can invest in human resources, education, and even in the new housing that further widens the income gap. On the contrary, poor people do not have enough capitals or money to invest in the human capitals, and thus would be caught in the poverty trap. Rising inequality has severe impacts to the society. For example, the prevalence of mental illness, infant mortality rates, obesity rates, homicide rates are higher in more unequal rich countries. And health and social problems are proportional to the country's inequality. On the contrary, indexes such as educational scores and child well-being are better in more equal countries.
Many of the poor are forced to live in poor conditions due to lack of alternatives.
This used to be just an ordinary flat, but a private landlord has illegally divided it into bed spaces that are no larger than a cupboard. Alan has lived here for 3 years. He says 11 people live in this corridor alone, and there's another one just like it next door. He used to live with relatives, but after they passed away, this was the only place he could afford.
呢度局促啲啦，不過冇所謂啦，呢度其實瞓覺啫嘛，係咯。我哋而家住住先咯，諗住住住先，遲啲再搬啊嘛，有機會有錢就再搬㗎啦。申請公屋就會搬㗎啦。
Due to the poor housing conditions, some of the poor refuse to accept help and prefer living on the street.
Yu Yip has been waiting for public housing for more than 10 years. In that time, he's tried living in subdivided flats, but prefers sleeping on the street.
嗰啲木室房我仲衰過瞓呢度。你而家就算俾我如果趕租嗰啲木室房，我都未必翻去瞓嘅。
Authorities step in to order the homeless to leave the area after the local communities complain. Many of them move to a nearby park. The root of the problem for the homeless poor are often not resolved even when authorities are involved. While some of the poor still hold the hope of moving to places with better living conditions, others have long accepted the housing problem and are resigned to their fate.
冇咩唔開心嘅，我哋有幾多用幾多啦。我唔要求咁高嘅。
Hong Kong's government offers land to the developer by tender. It's done all behind the scenes, and whoever bids highest wins. However, the land is not put up for sale very often. In this case, the developers can get more and more benefits from it. In addition, due to the unclear progress of tender, there is a high risk to occur corruption between government and developer. Therefore, the developers are easier to earn a lot of money, which includes the income of selling the flats and potential benefits of government. In addition, the government would not like to change the current housing situation. As we all know, Hong Kong is a tax-friendly economy in the world. The main income of government comes from a large chunk of revenue of land sales, according to the data of the major sources of government revenue conducted by the Research Office of Legislative Council Secretariat. About 27% of incomes are land premium. It is the most important part of government revenue. Hence, if property values drop, the government cannot make as much money. The government need to reconsider its financial system. To maintain the stable incomes, the action of government to solve the housing problems is quite passive. Lastly, the inadequate land supply becomes an opportunity for rich people to monopolize the market. Due to the opposition of environmental groups and the restriction of law, the areas of land are not enough. The landowners in this uncontested environment can make the price as high as possible. Therefore, they can earn much more money and which also result in the extension of wealth disparity.
By getting a deeper understanding of the current situation of the poor and the rich under housing policies, we could acknowledge that it is unfair and useless on helping the poor to have a comfortable place to live. Nowadays, the government keeps positive non-interventionism, so the rich people could earn much more from speculation or lease a subdivided flat at an unaffordable price. However, such behaviors are not illegal in Hong Kong, although renting a subdivided flat in Hong Kong is illegal. The government still unable to have any law enforcement as they do not have countermeasures to settle tenants, and rich people can earn money and live in a better place for granted. The richer you are, the bigger chance that you can win the game. On the other hand, the poor are unable to purchase or rent a flat in the short term as their salary could not meet the ever-rising property price. According to the International Housing Affordability Survey by Demographia, the flat grade in Hong Kong is graded as severely unaffordable, so, if you are poor, you will never be qualified for having a comfortable home and earn money. At last, you could only rent a subdivided flat or become a street sleeper. Just because of the long waiting time of public housing, only people who are rich and prosperous in Hong Kong could win the game. Otherwise, you are classified as a loser in such a cruel society.
What can you buy with 5.6 million Hong Kong dollars? It's enough to get you 9 Tesla Model S vehicles, or this 10-bedroom, 138,000 square foot 17th century French castle, or you could buy a 265 square foot apartment on Hong Kong Island. Yes, that's right. This tiny flat costs the same amount as this giant castle. That's because Hong Kong is the most expensive housing market in the world. There are a number of reasons why. First, the lack of space. Hong Kong is one of the world's most densely populated places. 7.3 million people live on just 77 square kilometers of land that the government has allocated for housing. That means the average living space is 180 square feet per person, which is equivalent to a one-car garage. Second, the land sales process. In principle, the Hong Kong government owns all the city's land. It sells plots of land to developers through a tender process each year and grants them 50-year leases to build private flats, hotels, and offices. This is to ensure the government earns enough money and that it upholds a philosophy of a free market. But critics have long said the land sale by tender process is a black box operation. Developers put their bids into a box, the government compares all of them, and grants the lease to the highest bidder. But it only announces the winning bid and amount.
Primary problem of housing in Hong Kong, as mentioned before, is that people's excessive wants versus scarcity of resources or lands available, driving up the prices of renting and purchasing the house. To solve the housing problem in Hong Kong, our group suggests multiple administrations to be introduced at the same time, including universal basic income, progressive taxation, and reclamation of lands. First, universal basic income would provide the general public the minimum standard of living for survival and housing. Universal basic income provides every single general public in Hong Kong enough money to rent a house. This means lower income groups of people and younger individuals who just graduated from college to have enough money to get housing. However, it is undeniable that adopting universal basic income is very expensive and that should be backed up with government budget. For Hong Kong, our group suggests progressive income tax, collecting higher marginal tax rate for the rich, to be adopted for 2 reasons. First, progressive income tax is better than simply raising the overall tax rate because it gives more burden to the rich, with naturally a loss for the redistribution of wealth. Moreover, limiting the income of rich by progressive tax can also limit upper classes' income to get multiple housing, which even enlarging the poverty trap. At the same time, reclaiming lands in Hong Kong is a must, for there are only 2 acceptable ways to make land available on the scale required: reclamation and developing the extensive agricultural land in new territories and in old Kowloon area.
Other places in the world have taken different approaches to reining in property prices. In Paris and in several Nordic countries, local governments have launched global competitions to look for the most innovative designs to solve their urban challenges. In Taiwan, Manila in the Philippines, and some Indian states, owners are taxed for vacant land to curb speculation and promote development. Will the steps Hong Kong is taking be enough to cool down the overheated market?